You may have noticed in the bulletin that we'll not be passing the peace in the way that we have been, but I'm going to suggest we still pass the peace. So, first of all, the peace of Christ be with you all. And now I propose that we're going to split right down the middle, and you can decide whether you're on the left or the right, whether you're a sheep or a goat. That's a reference to the passage that's coming up. Anyway. The left or the right. And if you're on this side, you'll go first. You'll say, the peace of Christ be with you all to this side, and this side will respond, and also with you. Is that clear? All right. Well, let's try that again. All right, so we can try that. And in lieu of passing the peace, I thought we could maybe try a few Spanish phrases this morning. How about hace frío? Anybody want to say hace frío? Which means? And how about es el invierno? Which means? It's winter, even though it's November 20th. And then one more, nieve, which means? So we're ready for winter now, a little bit of winter training for engaging one another in Spanish conversation. Our scripture this morning is Matthew 25, verses 34 through 40. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." The word of the Lord. Stanley Green served as the president of Mennonite Board of Missions, and then later when it became Mennonite Mission Network, for 25 years or so. Do you know, Tim, how many years it was? 20, well into the 20s, a long time. And I had the privilege of working with Stanley in the 90s when he was the president. And when he first became president of Mennonite Board of Missions, he wanted to change things. And he said, the days of Christians outsourcing being a Christian to agencies like ours to do missions on their behalf are over. We need to be in the business of helping Christians be Christians and not doing it for them. Those are strong words. And through the years, there began an emphasis in the Mennonite Church on every congregation being a mission outpost. Every congregation is a mission church. Mission is not something that happens elsewhere, that other people do, and that we support and pay for. Mission is something that we do. It's part of who we are and part of what it means to be a congregation. This is very different thinking from the sort of institution-based mission approach that had dominated the 20th century. So a real kind of change. And here at College Mennonite, we have taken that to heart. We have become a mission church, if you will, or we're trying to become a mission church. Some 6 years or so ago, College Mennonite adopted new strategic priorities, that is, things that we are going to prioritize as a congregation. And among those were embracing diversity. I'm emphasizing the verbs here because these strategic priorities are kind of long, but embracing diversity, deepening our faith, and, can I remember the other verb? Growing in our practices of love. Embracing diversity, deepening our faith, and growing in practices of love. Now, these sound fairly innocuous in some ways, and maybe they're the sorts of things that any congregation could have. But we decided shortly after this to put some flesh on those bones, to give some sort of deeper purpose to it. And we made the decision as a congregation, in a congregational vote, to invest $250,000 of a capital campaign into calling pastors of community outreach to Latinos in Goshen, in Elkhart County, for a 3-year period. And then we called particular pastors, David and Madeline Maldonado, who had been pastors at our sister church in Florida, to come and lead us in that ministry. Those are consequential decisions. And I remember after these decisions that Ron Kennel came up to me and said, "This is a momentous day in the history of College Mennonite Church. This is change. Things are going to be different." And I said, "Yes, indeed. Things are going to be different." The decisions that we made were risky and dangerous. And any time you are a leader involved in something like this, where there's change going on, you know it's dangerous. People don't like change. People like things to stay the same, to stay the way that they've been, the familiar. The things that they like to happen, they want to keep happening. That's part of what it means to be human. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not bad. So when a group of people says we want to change, and there's no sort of sense of like, what is that going to look like? Because it's really hard to know when you decide to embrace diversity, deepen faith, and grow in practices of love, what exactly that's going to look like. It's kind of risky. It's a high risk move. And today we're kind of celebrating the harvest of mission that we've experienced as a mission church. But I want to go back to those decisions, and I want to ask the question, why? Why would we do this? Why are we doing this? Earlier this fall, Indiana Michigan Conference had a all teams retreat. They do that every year, and it actually happens here at College Mennonite in the Koinonia room. It's where this happens. And Addie Lehman on our staff keeps reminding me of this because it made an impact on her. And the question that was put to us in our works in the various teams that we work on in conference is, what is our why? Why are we doing what we're doing? And you keep asking, the process, you keep asking this, why? But why? But why? But why? And you peel back the layers of the onion to get to the center of why we're doing what we're doing. So I've asked myself, why are we doing this? Why if it's dangerous? Why if it's risky? Why if it means change that makes us uncomfortable or upset or unhappy, afraid? Why are we doing this? What possible meaning could there be other than just making ourselves miserable? Why? Why embark on this? Several years ago, I was with Jonathan after some band event in Indianapolis. and we'd spent the night somewhere. I forget what the event was, back in my band parent days. And we were headed north, headed back home, and I wanted to go to church. I don't know why, I just like to go to church. And there was on our way a large United Methodist church. And I said, let's go there. This church had happened to be Richard Lugar's church. I don't know, I'm not sure. He wouldn't have been there that Sunday. But we happened to show up on Pledge Sunday. We don't do pledges here at College Mennonite, but it happens this time of year in November. Pledge Sunday. You know what Pledge Sunday is? Where everybody sort of writes down what they're going to give in the next year, and based on the pledges, they make their budget. So they were wanting to highlight that part of church life, and their big thing was making a difference in the world. And they had this huge graphic on stage with a giant globe. It wasn't three-dimensional; it was flat, but it was quite memorable. I think it was kind of made out of glass, and this huge globe, and the making a difference in the world. And the expectation, of course, is that if you give to the ministries of this church, you are going to make a difference in the world. Now, we all want to make a difference in the world, right? Making a difference in the world sells. People like that. People like to feel that their actions, their contributions are consequential. We all want to feel like when we leave this earth, that it will be better for our having been here. That's a good thing. We should want to make a difference in the world, and we should want to make the world a better place than it's been. And we also want to measure that. We live in an age of measuring things. We want to measure. How are we making the world a better place? How much are we making the world a better place? What kind of difference are we making? I'm quite interested, personally, in the difference that a church makes, a local congregation, in its community. And there have been some studies out there of that have quantified, that have measured in economic terms the difference that a single, typical, average-sized church makes in its community in terms of wealth, in terms of the value that it adds to the community. So there have been studies out there that have done this. And I would imagine a church like College Mennonite is off the charts in terms of the value that we could quantify that. We could get some PhD in economics to write a dissertation on College Mennonite and the difference College Mennonite makes in the world. We could measure that. And that would make us feel good. But I want to propose this morning that sort of thing is not our why. And the more I get into this journey that we're on, the less I feel like that sort of thing is our why. The less interested I am in counting the difference that we've made in the world. We have made a difference, to be sure. We have made a difference in our community, but our purpose, the meaning of this journey as a mission church, goes much deeper than counting. How can you count eternity? How can you count eternity? I heard this many years ago, and I was trying to remember where it was, and for a while I thought it was Ivan Karamazov and the brothers Dostoevsky who said this, but I don't think it was. I was going back and looking for that, and I couldn't find it. Who asked the question about all the people who were sick, lame, blind, deaf, leprosy, what have you, in Palestine in the first century, and what percentage of those did Jesus heal? I mean, I don't know, but I would guess it was a really small percentage. Really small percentage. Jesus didn't come and say, I'm going to make a difference in the world, and I'm going to start a program that's going to end leprosy as we know it in Palestine. Now, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but that's not what Jesus was doing, was it? He didn't do that. Yet healing was an important part of his ministry. Who did he heal, and why did he heal them? Jesus healed those who came across his path, who came to him, who were present to him, and he healed them because he had compassion on them. Who did he feed? Jesus didn't start a hunger abatement program, didn't start a food bank. He had the capacity, one would suppose, to feed everybody, to end hunger as it would be known, to provide clean sanitation for everybody. He didn't do that. He fed those who were hungry, who came to him. And the significance of that is that Jesus made known the incarnation, the Word made flesh, eternity in this finite world. The reality that is God's love was revealed. And those around him partook, shared in the life of eternity, the life of God. Matthew 25 is an important passage for us at College Mennonite Church. It's been an extremely important passage for us in this journey of becoming a mission church in terms of the why we're doing what we're doing. If you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to me. This week, for reasons that have nothing to do with this sermon, a couple of you know or have heard this already, I came across the story of Martin of Tours. I think that's the right way to say that, Martin of Tours, who was a saint in the 4th century in what is now France, and it was the Roman Empire. Martin of Tours. And Martin came from a military family, and he was expected, as part of this family, to join the military when he got old enough. But Martin didn't want to join the military. He wanted to become a Christian. His parents weren't Christians, and he wanted to become a Christian. He felt called, in terms of his vocation, in terms of his life, to follow Jesus. But the time came, and his parents made him join the military. Eventually, he was able to leave the military and follow his path as a follower of Jesus. But while he was in the military, he was on a horse with his heavy military coat on, and he encountered a beggar along the roadside. And he took his cloak and he ripped it in two, and he gave half the coat to the beggar. And he had a vision of heaven. And in this vision, he saw and heard Jesus with that cloak. And Jesus said to the angels, "You know who gave me this coat? Martin gave me this coat. He's just a catechumen. He's just studying to be a Christian. He gave me this coat." As I think about that story, and I don't know, you may think, oh, it's Legends of the Saints, it's kind of, but as I think about that story, it captures my imagination. I imagine Jesus in eternity saying to the angels, You know who invited me into their home to stay? You know who? You know who got me this mattress, this furniture? You know who gave me a ride? You know who gave me clothes? I'm pointing up there to the clothes that are behind that partition. Maybe we should just move the partition and make that a part of our worship setting. You know who did? You know who fed me, who got me pots and pans, who visited me? The people at College Mennonite. When I was an immigrant, when I was an asylum seeker, when I didn't know anything about this place where I was going to be, they welcomed me. And you know what they did? They don't speak Spanish, most of them. You know what they tried to do? They tried to learn Spanish. They used Spanish in their worship service to make me feel welcome. They tried to sing songs that make me feel at home. Those people at College Mennonite, this is Jesus talking to the angels. Those people at College Mennonite, that's what I imagine. Jesus. When we do those things, the cup of cold water, the hot meal, the rides, the coats, the houses, the mattresses, the dressers, when we do those things, eternity breaks into this finite world in which we live. And it is a beautiful and holy thing. We're going to see, to close the sermon, see a video this morning of people from College Mennonite Church who have a story to tell, a story they want to tell. It is one story of many stories that we could tell. It is a unique story, and not every story is like this, but I say this story is just straight out of heaven. It's a holy story, and when you were when we were recording this video, there was a sense of sacredness and the presence of the Spirit. It's a holy story, and I'm going to set the stage. The story, the center of the story is a woman named Marlene. Actually, the center of the story is the Holy Spirit, but the story begins with a woman named Marlene, who is a part of College Mennonite now. And in June, this year, in June, she was distraught. She was near 8th Street Daycare. Her daughter was playing nearby. She was very upset. She was praying. And a woman from 8th Street Daycare came and talked to her and asked if she could give her number to somebody that she knew. And that person was Wilmari from our church. And Wilmari took the number and shared it with Madeline. And I'm going to let the video pick up the story now.
Sentí que ya no podía más, pero mi hija me necesitaba.
I felt like I couldn't continue or go on, but my daughter needed me.
Y lo único que decía era, Dios mío, ayúdame.
And all I could say was, God, help me.
En eso se acerca una señora hacia mí.
At that time, a woman approached me.
Solo hablaba inglés.
She only spoke English.
Y yo lo único que le decía, I don't speak English.
And the only thing I say, I don't speak English.
Cuando lo único que le dije fue, necesito mudarme.
The only thing I could said to her was, I need to move.
No quiero vivir más donde estoy.
I don't want to live where I'm living anymore.
Al día siguiente, recogí mis cosas y me fui directo al refugio.
The next day, I picked up my things and left to the refuge.
Y recibí su llamada.
And I received your call.
Llegué con usted.
I came to speak to you.
Después me dijo que si quería que oraran por mí unos ancianos de la iglesia.
And then you asked if I wanted some of the older persons to pray for me at the church.
Y yo acepté.
And I accepted.
Me hicieron la oración y después me fui al refugio.
They prayed for me, and then I left to the refuge.
Después usted me llamó que había una de las ancianas que habían orado por mí, estaban dispuestas a ayudarme.
Then you called me and told me that one of the older persons that had prayed for me was willing to help me.
Y mi primera reacción fue, realmente debo aprender a confiar porque si alguien me quiere ayudar sin conocerme, me llegó su consejo.
And my first reaction was to think, I really do need to learn to trust because somebody's willing to help me without knowing me.
Y le dije a Dios, si has escuchado mi oración.
And I said to God, you have heard my prayers.
Y hasta hoy agradezco a Dios por ponerlos a ellos en mi camino.
Until today, I'm thankful to God for placing them in my path.
Los considero parte de mi familia.
I consider them part of my family.
Well, we were just beginning to pray at that point, and as soon as you left, the leader of our prayer choir began her prayer by saying, Jesus, you came into our room this evening, and we had no room for you. And that struck my heart. Melanie and Samantha arrived at our home. We've enjoyed learning to know them, and they've become like daughter and granddaughter to us. They lived with us for almost 2 months.
I think we both kind of felt like we did have something to offer, and I think that you have to say it was working of the Spirit.
Yes, it's been a pure joy to have hosted them and to learn to know them and to be a part of our family.